Well, oh,
That was a quick 5 minutes.
yeah. Well, here we go.
Welcome to DAExMachina. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Well, we're off to a weird start. The intro just turned itself off. Oh, well.
I know I didn't zone out or anything.
Yeah, I was just sitting there waiting for the countdown, and all of a sudden it just cuts off.
Always got to be something with us.
It has always got to be something. That is a fact. Well, unfortunately, Doc's not going to be with us tonight, and Steve works, so we just going to put up with me and Robbie tonight. And so we will do our best to kind of keep you all entertained. Sorry about the intro snafu. Of course, it is snafu situation normal, all fouled up. And here we go. I guess we're just going to run without it. But I have to see if I can figure out here in a little bit what the heck went wrong with the stupid intro. So hopefully we can have it fixed for next time. Robbie, how the heck are you, man?
I'm here. I'm tired with our monthly departmental meeting tonight, so I was hauling tail to get home and get changed and get ready so we could get going tonight. So, but other than that, yeah, just a normal day.
Well, something to be said for that.
Yeah. Any day above ground.
I think I'd much rather have a normal day than one day where I was running around with like a chicken with my head cut off.
Yeah. I seem to have those quite often.
Yeah. Before we get started tonight, we're gonna mention our one affiliate, and we'll go ahead and get that over with. Tonight, we're gonna do an in-house affiliate from this Yahoo right here. We're going to talk a little bit about Lone Wolf Customs because Robbie's got some finished knives to show off, especially for those of y'all who are interested in the project, knife projects he's making.
Yeah. So, as DA saying, the forge is up and running. Knives are being made. I've got 2 to show. We showed them the other night, but DA and I are talking. Sometimes we don't have quite the same group on Sunday nights as we do on Wednesdays and Saturdays. So, to show everybody, this is Declan's blade. This is the Widowmaker. You can see it's I always turn the wrong way. It's got the Widowmaker on this one's got the walnut hand, the black walnut.
Hang on just a second. Let me see if I can make that bigger for you.
Now you're bigger.
There we go.
Feel like Doc. There we go. And this is got the 4 brass pins in the handle. Kind of shined it up so it's hard to see, but it's got the wild frontiers. Listen at me. I'm trying to combine multiple series. The Dark Frontiers logo on it got and it doesn't have to have those on it, but that's
that Apex Frontiers man, huh?
Yeah, that's it. The Apex Frontiers. That's DA's or Declan's blade that DA's ordered. This is the trace.
God dang it.
We're having a good night tonight, ain't we?
Yeah.
This would be the Natchez trace buoy. This is for Doc's character, and this is the one that Doc has ordered because you see
also known as the Davis Zweihander.
Yeah. You see the is that showing Caduceus? Up? Yeah, the Caduceus. Is that showing up? I can figure out which way to turn it.
Well. Is that the engraving on a dark wood?
Yeah.
Now you
well,
I can kind of see it now, but there's glare from your light on it. There you go.
There we go. So anyway, engravings are so if you're interested, like I said, I've got Kevin has ordered one. I'm working on his now. These are pretty much done. I just got to take them.
Kay Bowers wants to know if Docs has a Wendigo and a snowmobile on it.
If he'd wanted that on it, that's what. But I wouldn't. Okay, I would not think that Doc would want something like that on his. Now,
Pine Knot said they got their scallywag delivered today. That's awesome.
Cool. Now, if you want one with a Wendigo and a snowmobile, we can talk.
That can
but-
happen.
Yeah, but Doc, I don't think he wants a Wendigo and a snowmobile on his knife. And the customer's always right. So, but anyway, yeah, if y'all want those, Sonya or Steve or somebody in the moderator group can throw my email up there. Send me an email. We can discuss which blades you want. And obviously, I've got more designs than just these two. These are just the two that are done right now that I can show. And we're not showing, a blank piece of wood in the shape of it. So the forge is up and running. And what did you say, DA? About 2 weeks?
Yeah, about that.
Took me about 2 weeks, and that's 2 weeks to do two knives. So, and I'm about halfway through. I've got three that I'm working on, Kevin's and two others. The two others are kind of like barter knives, so to speak, because I had to pay for the walnut for the handle somehow. So, guy that I work with at the school gave me the walnut, trading him out a knife for that, and then Johnny and I did some trading on the other one, and he's doing the leather holsters on the knives for me. So if you want a leather holster, that's another part of the conversation. It's just a couple of emails back and forth. Kevin can tell you it's just me asking a couple of questions about what you want and, handle material and all that kind of stuff. So
Here's a question for you. I know this one's coming out of left field. But let's say, for example, I wanted custom grips done for a pistol. Could you do it?
you mean like engraving or making the whole grip?
Making the whole grip.
Pretty sure I can, because I actually, funny enough that you should say that. I did a
Would you
mock
need the
up.
pistol on hand, or could you get a mock-up of it?
I found online, did a mock up. You recognize what those are? Now these aren't. You could actually put these on because they're the right size, but obviously they're just cut out of that 3mm balsa wood or whatever. But that's the exact size of a 1911 grip.
Could you do a set for a Smith and Wesson 686 Plus?
Yeah, probably all I would need to get would be the measurement.
The Pacmar grips that are on mine are old and they're starting to get brittle, and I would like to have a good wood set on it.
Yeah, I would think that would be just a matter of getting the hole patterns right and the measurements. I would think it wouldn't be no problem. Matter of fact, I think I might be around that way pretty soon, so I might be able to just bring because all I need to do is trace it out.
I don't want to show the whole thing because YouTube being YouTube. But let's show the handle here, and this is a Pacmar grip, but it's an old Pacmar and it's getting brittle, and pieces are starting to flake off of it. And I like it; it's comfortable, but I think I'd rather have a wooden grip on it.
Yeah, I got some walnut, got some ash, got some cherry.
I bet some cherry would look good with that satin finish on it.
Yeah. He's ordered that notch trace, and he's getting cherry handles on it. So that cherry and that brass are going to look good together, I think.
Yeah, and I want to get you to do the handle on my Griswold as well.
You just want something engraved on that, though, right?
It needs to be completely finished. I don't know if you can see it. Again, I don't want to show off the whole thing. But when it arrived, the handle was completely unfinished.
Oh, that easy.
Okay. Well, then I'll probably send that back with you to finish out.
Yeah. Finishing is the least stressful part.
Thanks, JDW. That's my EDC. It's a 7 rounds. The 686 Plus. And that one's also going with me when we go back to Comus Ferry.
Yep. But
nothing says bad doggy, no biscuit to a dog man quite like a high velocity 357 hollow point.
Yep. We're gonna have at least 2 357s there. I'm sure Doc's probably gonna have a few play purdies.
K Bauer says they got some Guncrafter ink grips on my 10mm. I thought about ordering a set of the Guncrafter, what do they call the frag grips for 1911. But I've got a really nice set. Well, here I can show the handle. I have stack grips on my
Well, those
1911, and I'm going to leave those there because I really like them.
those handles look awful familiar.
Yeah,
What
they
did I
look
see?
very, very much like the ones on yours and Doc's.
And Doc's. But yeah. So I didn't. Did they put my email address up? I didn't.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. I was talking to you, wasn't paying attention.
I had it up on the main screen too.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if you want your orders, get them in. Because ain't nothing but a thing. We can few emails back and forth, figure it out. And then get it
LT's
to
in
you.
the house.
And
Out here, I plan to bring something good. Yeah, he's got the three main varietals of the Desert Eagle variety: 35744 and 500.
and just as a little special side note, when you order a knife, look what it's gonna come in.
That is badass, dude.
I engraved that. That's got the Lone Wolf Forge and Customs logo on it.
You're
As
gonna
you-
have foam in it to protect the blade.
Yep, I've got all that stuff. I had this
Nice.
out here the other night because I was going to show you and Doc when we was in there, and we got to talking, and I forgot all about it. And I was just, wait a minute, that's sitting over there. So I figured I'll show that.
That is slick.
I got a whole box of these boxes. That's
Heck
a
yeah, man. I like
oxymoron.
that. Box of boxes.
A box of boxes.
He has a plethora of boxes.
Yes. And what I did is I had them monsters. Okay, I was pronouncing it how Doc pronounced it, and that's where he's from. So sorry. But anyway, where was I at?
Talking about the boxes, plethora of
Oh,
boxes.
I had a big order was for I think it was like maybe one of my lasers or something like that, but it had all that dense black packing foam in it. The stuff that's just like I don't want to throw that away. I bet I can use that for something. So I've got a stack of that stuff in there that I'm gonna cut to fit in those boxes where I can put the knives in, and they're there.
KC, no, he doesn't do that. He uses the laser on a lower setting to etch that into the box.
Yeah, it's got the F1 has got a materials list, and you can select what your material is, and the laser automatically powers itself to what it's supposed to be.
Larry, I got 156 grain solid core hollow points. They're law enforcement grade. So if they that don't do the trick, I need different ammo. I need a different weapon if that doesn't do the trick. Sorry, my back's hurting me a little bit. Got to readjust my lumbar pillow. Well, anyway, we were gonna talk about military encounters tonight, so we probably ought to change the subject before this becomes a pew pew show.
It'll be the first time.
Would not be the first time. Probably won't be the last.
No.
Ed says he's got to get going tonight. He's got to do dad things. Well, Ed, have a good night, man. Thank you for popping in. So what do you want to start with? I mean, there's a ton of different encounters.
Yeah, I mean, we've obviously talked about the Afghanistan thing several times, but one we hadn't really talked about a whole lot is did they call them lizard people, or did they just call them green men? Or what did they call our soldiers used to see them in Vietnam all the time?
Oh, rock apes?
Well, the rock apes too, but there was also lizard people that they saw out there.
I don't know as much about that one. I've read quite a bit about the rock apes, but I've never read about.
Well, we can talk about the rock apes too, because that's right down our alley. But we don't really talk about some of that stuff as much as we do the others. A little bit more obscure type thing. I mean, it's still along the same lines, But
Well, we've got military encounters and sightings that go back, heck, World War One and Two, Korea, the Civil War. I wouldn't even be surprised if there weren't ones from prior to that. We know the Romans and the Greeks both encountered dogman type creatures, the cynocephali.
and technically that's a military encounter.
That is technically a military encounter.
That was that platoon size or was that like?
Well, they said they encountered an entire army.
No, I'm talking about the Romans that actually encountered. Was it a platoon size that the Romans had sent out, or was it smaller, or what?
I want to say it was an entire legion.
Which would be platoon?
No, a legion was 1,000 men.
Okay, so more company size.
No, more like battalion size.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an idea in my.
A company's about 30. No, a platoon's about 30 guys. A company's about 120 guys, depending on the company. Also, depending on the type of company. Like a tank company is not as big as, say, an infantry company, that kind of thing. But yeah, company, depending on what they are, mounted cavalry, whatever, company size. But a company size changes. But a centurion was in charge of 100 men. A century of men. That's where centurion comes from.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Learn something new every day. But and then we've also got an untold amount of encounters where people talk about things that were happening in the woods or up in the mountains or things like that, and all of a sudden a special forces team comes in and goes and handles business. I mean, I've like 2 or 3 different stories I can think of off the top of my head. Some of them in North Carolina, and we talked about one.
Well, supposedly there have been a number of encounters at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
And I know of a handful, and I know there's got to be more, but I know of a handful personally that are in and around Fort Leonard Wood, especially at that back gate where Team Odin's at, supposedly in the books. They're not really there, but that south gate of Fort Leonard Wood, there have been encounters at that gate.
Is that the gate people come up to and say,
"Yeah, hey, where's Steve's Pub and Grub?" DVB2 says Roman legions varied over time, but typically ranged from 4,200 to 6,000 men. So a legion was pretty damn big.
Yeah.
Which makes me really wonder what happened to the 9th. The Legio 9 Hispania marched north of Hadrian's Wall and was never heard from again. That's why they're called the Lost Legion.
Well, and it was a cheesy movie, but there was a little B movie based on it. You remember I told you about it, that I watched it one night? It was loosely based on it. Let's just put it that way.
Well, there's been 2 or 3 movies made on it. The Eagle was with I can't think of his name. Channing Tatum.
Channing Tatum, yep.
Yeah, The Eagle with Channing Tatum was loosely based on the Legend of the Lost Legion. There was another one called The Eagle of the Legion, I think was made back in the 50s, was about the Lost Legion.
But didn't they in that one with Channing Tatum though, they left out most of the.
Well, it was supposedly his father was part of the 9th, and he was looking for what happened to the 9th. Yeah, he wasn't part of the 9th. It wasn't the 9th that went north of the wall. It was Channing looking to find out what happened.
It's been so long since I've seen it. Didn't they leave that dogman or cynocephali or werewolf or whatever you want to call it? Didn't they leave that element out of the movie?
Yeah, there was none of that mentioned.
Okay.
But then again, we don't know that that's what happened to the 9th. The 9th went north of Hadrian's Wall into Scotland and were never heard from again. So it could have been, the Scots themselves, which at the time were known as the Picts, kind of the pre-Scots. It could have been, warring bands of the Picts banded together to take out a legion, or it could have been something supernatural. We just don't know. And after it disappeared, all mention of the 9th disappeared from the Roman rolls, and that's unheard of because the Romans were meticulous records keepers.
And what's
Hey Wyatt,
what's up, Wyatt?
Wyatt, did you get that email I sent you? Cajun Dogs' Centurion was a good one. Yeah, Centurion was pretty good too.
Well, I mean, if you go back in the records, like we talked about, and look at how many, and not that this is a military type, but when you get those French trappers and things like that, that that were out there, wasn't like they were just strolling around the woods. They were out there armed and doing stuff, doing a pretty dangerous job, and they encountered them all the time. And was 1700s or so is when those reports started coming in
Out of France?
I mean, no, not. I'm talking about in Louisiana when French trappers came down.
First talking about the Rougarou down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say that was in the late 1700s.
Yeah, I
when
mean,
the Acadians were first starting to settle down there.
and like I said, that's not technically a military encounter, but like I said, it's armed people out there in the woods. So it's almost kind of like if you think about how the Predator movies go, Attracted to Combat or that type of stuff.
Drawn to armed conflict or armed men.
It almost kind of has that flavor,
that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, that flavor.
What was it? I think it was Hemingway that said there is no hunting like the hunting of man, and those who have done it long enough and grown accustomed to it never care for anything else.
Yep, that quote has been used in a lot of movies. In the opening,
I believe it was Hemingway that said that, but it's a great quote. I won't say his name. I had a guy I went to school with that I knew for years growing up, with deer hunted with him, and he became a sniper when I went in the Army. I was a radio operator, but he became a sniper, and I won't say who he was with, but he engaged. He did some major engagements in some places that, well, history will tell some of them, and history won't tell some of them because some of them are classified. But after he got out, I ran into him and asked him if he wanted to go deer hunting. And he goes, "No, I don't do that anymore. There's just no sport in it."
Yeah.
And he was about that cold about it too. He says, "This is no sport in it."
What? And you look at and
Hey, Mike.
At the chance of veering, which I'm not trying to veer off, but that whole premise of like the Predator, that's why the Predator hunted humans more than it did anything else. Because and if you get into the actual canon of the comics and things like that, they really dive into that about how that whole society valued the hunt, and it was prestigious and esteemed, and that's which I know there's a lot of
the more dangerous the prey, the higher the prestige.
So what if we always like to talk about how smart these things are and all this. What if they are really smart? And that's that's where the premise of Predator came from, is what's really been going on for centuries here.
Well, I know guys that have hunted all their lives, and they'll deer hunt, but they really enjoy hunting predators. They hunt bear. They hunt. Well, heck, Jeff Yarrington's a big bear hunter. He likes to go up to Maine every year and hunt blackies. But there are guys that have gone to the Aleutian Islands to hunt Kodiak with nothing more than a bow or a pistol.
Oh,
that's not just balls. That's basketballs.
I watched back when I used to watch when Saturday mornings used to be cool, and they used to have all the hunting shows on Saturday mornings, which they don't anymore. But there was and I want to say it was it came on right after Bill Jordan's Real Tree Outdoors. I can't remember what the name of the show was, but this guy was stalk hunting a Kodiak with a recurve bow.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That is absolutely nuts. A bear that's pushing every bit of 1,500 pounds with a bow. No, thank you.
Yeah, and not
in
even.
In fact, if I'm gonna engage a bear like that, it's gonna be from across the valley with a very long range rifle. I don't even want it to know where I'm at. Cajun Dog said one book I read as a teenager said they ran into a pack of beings described like the Yellow Fednar. I think he's talking about about Legio 9 Hispania. If you ever remember the name of that book, shoot it to me, Cajun. I wouldn't mind reading that. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. But you know, and I know I'm the one that is always it's flesh and blood animal. But if you want to start throwing stuff out there like that, I mean, that's not a bad theory to throw out. That okay, if they are an advanced species like that, then how far fetched is it to say that? Okay, well, what if we're their trophies?
Yeah,
it would sure explain something why there's so many missing 411s and why you don't ever find anybody because they're hung up on over a mantle somewhere.
Let's just be honest. When you're talking about people going out into the national parks, 80 to 90% of them are sheep. They have no situational awareness, probably not carrying anything bigger than a walking stick. So it's really no challenge. And a lot of the missing 411s, it was either children or elderly that went missing.
Yeah.
So these things aren't exactly hunting something that could hunt them back.
Well,
but they are taking out the weaker members of the pack.
Squirrel hunting is popular to a lot of people, I mean.
Well, because squirrel's tasty.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't
we
fight
hunted
back.
Squirrels not because we liked shooting them. We hunted squirrels because we like to fry them and eat them.
But yeah, like I said, I'm not saying that that's something that I actually believe. I'm just saying that, if we want to start throwing stuff out there like that, then I think that's just as much of a valid theory as anything as to why they would be doing this.
Just a guy, that used to be the case. Firearms were banned in national parks and national forests, but that was found unconstitutional, and it has changed. National Park does not advertise that fact, but you can carry in national parks just for defense. I mean, you can carry handguns, but obviously, if you're walking around with a deer rifle, they're going to question what the hell you're doing. But if you can carry conceal in them as long as you're not out there trying to target practice or mess with the wildlife. But they repealed that. It is possible to carry in national parks and wildlife management areas for purposes other than hunting. Angela Monroe says the missing are the Darwin Award winners. Very well could be in a lot of cases. Just a guy says, is it still illegal to defend yourself? No. If your life is in danger, even in town, you can defend yourself from an animal attack. Because I know people that have had dogs attack them or their kids and shot the dog, and the police were just like, well, as long as you didn't hit anybody else,
now,
and, you guys are okay.
I will say there are some states that will still give you a hard time if you shoot a mama that's got cubs. Mm-hmm. You may be able to get out of it, but you're gonna have to go through.
Yeah, I would be very careful about it. I wouldn't just make that my first resort. In fact, I might cack a couple rounds into the ground just to back it off. I would be very careful about shooting something, especially if it's an endangered animal.
Yeah.
Mike says, I'd hate to be ate alive. Exactly. That's why you always keep one round for you.
Yep.
So if I'm carrying my 357, 6 rounds are for it. Number 7 is for me.
Better hope you don't lose count. Like Danny Trejo did in Anaconda.
Yeah.
Trick.
That's a pretty good movie for a cheesy movie.
It was. Little young Danny Trejo climbing up the mast, and a lot of people didn't realize that was him because he looked so young in that movie.
Yeah.
And he wasn't in it but 10 seconds. Where he was snake food.
Travis Duarte says California is a tough place for this. Another reason why I would never live there. I wouldn't live in California, Illinois, Washington, Oregon, or New York State if they gave me the state. No, thank you. Not doing it. I'll stick to my constitutional carry pro-gun state. Thank you. Billy Mitchum says I have 18 rounds. It depends on what I'm carrying, but I always have 2 speed loaders for my 357 when I carry it. So 21 rounds, but I just got to get quick at loading them.
Yeah. Billy's never seen us go out before, has he?
Clearly not. And when we were talking about that, our foray into Combs Ferry, Jenkins was there. Wyatt Estes was in the crowd here. He was there. One of our other lieutenants from Greene County, Fredo Estrella, was there. My son Noah was there. Me and Robbie were there. Steve was there. We were probably carrying enough ammunition and firearms to be considered the third largest standing army in the Midwest. We were well heeled, we'll put it that way. And we'll be even more so for this next trip.
Speaking of well heeled, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I knew that line and I knew, or that term, even before I read it in Dark Frontiers, but I didn't remember where I had heard it from and where I learned it from. Got reminded last night. Young Guns. Dirty Steve comes up when he comes running in when Buckshot Roberts come out and he goes, "We got a well heeled and coming at us, boys." I'm like, that's where I heard that from.
Well, you know, in Tombstone, when Wyatt slaps Billy Bob Thornton, he's like,
Yep.
Billy Bob Thornton was like, says, "You'd run your for one that don't go healed, you run your mouth awful reckless." He says, "I don't need to go healed to get the bulge on a tub like you."
Right.
Is that a
But
fact?
Young Guns came out before Tombstone, though.
That's
remember?
true. Young Guns is also the first time I'd heard in a movie the line "Drop Sam Colt."
Yep.
But that was a line that was actually used, period, correct. But that was the first movie I ever heard it in.
I watched that again last night. I forgot how good that movie was. It's
Doc,
not on,
Cajun Doc was on the street howitzer.
Yep. They'd be less apt to get nervy if Doc's on the street howitzer.
Damn right.
If y'all didn't know, that's the three of our favorite movie consensusly.
Wyatt says, you just stand there and bleed? You gonna do something? You just gonna stand there and bleed? All right, youngster, out you go. Grab him by the ear.
Oh, look, honey. Latin. Now I really hate him.
It appears Mr. Ringo was an educated man. Now I really hate him. Now we're derailing again. God dang it. We're terrible. Hey, but since we're derailed, you want to show off your latest wood masterpieces?
Which ones?
The ones you made from the picture I sent you.
Oh, you want me to go get those and show them?
Yeah, that would be freaking cool. I was messing around the other day and made a picture and sent it to Robbie, and he liked it so much he put it on wood for us. So they are really slick. Yeah, Michelle, mine too. I love Tombstone. That's one of my favorite movies, and we can quote that one at the end. Hell, I could probably sit there and quote the whole thing along with it. K Bauer says, "Show us your wood, Robbie." That's funny. Thought I missed a question there. Anthony Coker says, "I came in perfect time. Y'all quoting movies." There he is.
But if any of y'all had any questions that what I just said weren't true,
I love that. I can't wait to hang that here in my office. That is going to be so freaking badass.
Yep.
Barry Beezer says, "Hey, I heard they sent a spec ops team into Oklahoma.
That was the other one we were talking about, Oklahoma,
to recover a drone." Yeah, that was the plot of Odin's Call.
No, we were talking about that because that's what you said. You're like, wait a minute, because there supposedly was something where they sent a special ops crew into Oklahoma about something. I can't remember what the details of it were.
Had something come down.
Yeah,
and they went in to secure it. The Ouachita Mountains.
Yeah.
That is a rough area, man.
Yeah.
Not only is it some seriously rugged terrain, there are tons of aggressive Bigfoot encounters. In fact, if you, granted, I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it because it's network TV, but that show that Rob Lowe did, where him and his sons went out looking for mysteries, and they went into the Ouachitas with a group of locals and damn near got into a firefight.
Yeah, he actually believes though.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll give him credit there, but it's not often you get a celebrity involved in anything like that where they're doing anything more than just making fun of it.
That true. That's why I didn't watch it at first, and I started really looking into it, and he really does believe in cryptids. Thank you, Irene. And
Thank you, Sonia.
I think Tricia said that. And what was I gonna say?
K Bauer says, "You're so drunk, you're probably seeing double." That's okay.
Okay.
I got one for each of them.
2 guns, 1 for each of you.
Did you notice that when he spins those guns, he spun them in opposite directions?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could do that sober.
That's our doc though, because I would just about bet he could.
I bet he could.
What there was something else about Oklahoma though. 'Cause we were talking about the show that me, you, and Noah were doing. That's when we found out that how.
Well, you mean the Florida County War?
Yeah, but it wasn't that. It was something. While we were talking about that, something else came up about that because we were talking about the heater stones, and that's how we got to looking at everything. And you were like, "Whoa, wait a minute! This is actually really close to where I set Odin's call."
Yeah, the Florida County Bigfoot War, where the Tubby brothers and Josh LaFleur fought the Bigfoot, was just a couple miles of that same area. It was right there near it.
But anyway, he'll come to me. But did you see the guy on YouTube put out a video not too long ago about that refurbishing of the Patty Gimlin video? Did you see that? Where it basically says in 3 frames he can prove that video was not hoaxed, or from 3 frames, and he had the guy on there again, or he had another guy on there. It was real big in the special effects world. It was like, there's just no way, absolutely no way, that the technology they had back then could have made a suit that looked as good as that. There's no way. He said if it was, that would have been what you would have been seeing on the big screen, and you never saw anything like that. And they did a real up close look of the suit that Hieronymus they tried to remake. He said,
which
look at
wasn't
this.
Even close.
He said this doesn't even look as good as the suits they had on Planet of the Apes. He said, but yet they're wanting us to believe that this is how they made the suit. This is what the suit looked like that we see on this video. He said, nah. He said, there's no way. Sorry about loudmouth. He's having
it's all right.
Having a moment. Apparently something's not going his way out there. Or he can get to it.
Jennifer Lee says, where's that in relation to Broken Bow? I don't know exactly how far that is from Broken Bow. I think it's a little ways, though.
How far were the Tubbies and the Light Horsemen were at? Is that what we're talking about? Because you or Noah actually looked it up, and he gave him. I want to say it was like 20 miles as the crow flies, or something like that. It wasn't really that far.
It wasn't real far, no. Jake, yeah, that'd be fine with me if you want to run a campaign based off that. That'd be awesome. Tell me how it turns out. I'd love to hear it. KC said, Robbie, did you see the side of her leg when she stepped? Yeah, you can actually see the muscle of the calf roll.
Yeah, that was one of the frames.
Which would be almost impossible to duplicate the suit.
Yep. Which is what they said. But that was one of the frames that he was looking at. Was when it was like her left leg and her toe was pointed up, and you could see with the muscle, and he kind of moved it forward and back, the frame by frame, and you can see the flexion in the muscle. He said, "This just that doesn't occur in a suit like that, especially back then."
Right. Yeah. So, I still think, Patterson Gimlin's probably the best piece of footage out there. And I know a lot of people that try to claim that it was hoaxed, but to me, nobody has ever been able to satisfactorily enough prove it was a hoax. In fact, every time they've tried, like with producing the Hieronymus suit, every time they've tried, they just made themselves look worse. But that's just me. I mean, to me, it just all they've ever been done is prove that they can't duplicate it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's been guys in the special effects industry now who said they would be hard pressed to produce practical effects that looked that good.
Yeah. Hey, Coker, if you get a Wild Hunt tattoo, send me a picture of it. Robbie, show yours off. Got to take your arm off and turn it the other way.
The freaking camera, the way it plays with your head when you're looking, your mind's telling you to move one way, but it's the wrong way. And it's just like
there's a setting on your camera down at the bottom of the screen where it says the little up arrow next to stop video. If you click on it, it'll give you the option to mirror your video, and then it'll be actually being more natural. I don't do it because to me it just seems weird.
Wow.
But you can.
Hey, that works.
There you go.
Now my mind's like, now, yeah, idiot. Now you're going in the right direction. Yeah, there.
But now you can't read your sign behind you. There you go.
I'll flip it back around after everybody looks at it.
Casey says Robbie Yoga.
Don't know about that. There we go.
But that's how you flip it around, so it's your movements are the way you would think they'd be. Because when I hold this up, I'm actually holding up my left hand, but it appears on the right hand side of the screen, so it just throws me off sometimes too. Yeah. That's why when I point at you or Doc, I've got to think about before I do it. I'm like, over there.
I'll do the same thing. I'll be like, that guy. And I'm like, no, that guy. Because I'm actually pointing at you with my hand, but my hand is pointing that way. If that makes any sense. Now, never mind.
I hear you. But yeah, that whole area of Oklahoma down there in the Choctaw Nation, that area is extremely active, because that's right down where Brown Springs is at. That's where the Choctaw Bigfoot War was at. That's where Codename Wild Hunt was. That's right down there near Heavener, Oklahoma. That whole area is very thickly wooded, and it's pretty boogery country, if you get what I mean.
Keeping with the theme of the show, the Charge of the Light Horseman was kind of like right in there with what we're talking about.
Yeah,
that was pretty much a military operation.
They were the military of the day.
Yeah. So, and that whole story is like fascinating.
Oh, I agree. And I would like to be able to go down there and spend some time and see if we can locate the exact spot.
Yeah, well, LaFleur's grave is there.
Yeah. LaFleur was a real guy. That's documented.
And so were the Tubbies.
Mm-hmm.
They're documented. And that supposedly that's where
and he died the year that incident is supposed to have happened.
And the term, the Charge of the Light Horseman, that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm. Larry Berlin says, I wonder if Custer had any cryptid encounters. Well, the Lakota certainly did. So if he was up there in Lakota territory, I would say he probably at least had some cross paths.
We'll have to ask Jay next time we talk to him, since he was there.
Yeah. Well, Jay and Gideon, they were both there.
That's true. The Battle of Greasy Grass.
That's ironic, because we still refer to it as the Battle of Little Bighorn, but historically, the victor of a battle gets to name it.
Yeah.
And so it should be known as the Battle of Greasy Grass because the U.S. cavalry did not win that battle. Kind of like the same thing with right here in Springfield with the Battle of Wilson's Creek. The Union didn't win that battle. They lost handily. In fact, they lost General Nathaniel Lyon in the battle. It was the first time a Union general had been killed in a battle. And the Southern boys routed them. And they called it the Battle of Oak Hills, but yet it's still known as the Battle of Wilson's Creek.
Yeah.
Karen Polson says, and the Tubby men were tall. The father was supposedly 8'2", and the oldest was 7'2". Well, they were saying that at the time, around the 1830s, that the average height of most of the Osage that were documented here in Missouri was over 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of Native Americans in the area that were big men.
DVB2 is going to keep us in suspense. They said the distance between it is.
He said it once, and I guess it disappeared. It was like 80 miles.
Okay. I was thinking Noah said 20, but I mean, that show's been, what, year and a half ago?
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
Gert, are you talking about the kind that mount to the front of the blade? You talking about like an old trench knife? Or are you talking about just a pair of brass knuckles? Because, I don't know, you get kind of, that would be one of those things I'd have to check to see if I could send something like that, number one. Because those
depends on the state. Some states those are illegal.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I had to sneeze.
I figured because I saw you kind of breathe in at first.
I was fixing to sneeze and didn't want to do it on the air.
But if they were attached to the front of a trench knife, that would probably change, But I don't have any kind of milling machines or anything like that to cut stuff like that out anyway. So
Chris Burkhardt says Gary Owen. Yep, exactly. 7th Cavalry's theme still is Gary Owen. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Gary Owen was an old Irish drinking song. Guster heard it playing in a bar and liked it. Kay Bauer says, your dog's saying there's a Bigfoot in the yard.
No. Well, if it is, it comes out every single night, especially on nights that we're doing a show.
Might be peeking in the window trying to see what we're talking about tonight.
I think he's probably having a conversation with Cap. That's why.
Somebody says, or a bear.
Oh, there's not a could, but we know for sure, Don, that there's been a bear in between mine and my mom and dad's house. We have the photographic evidence to prove it.
And that was a big old rascal too.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm pretty sure there's a cat and some rabbits that come out that because that's. I looked at one time when he went nuts and there was a cat out there in the yard, and then there's always little rabbits that sit out there, and they just look up at him like, "Keep yelling, stupid. We know you can't do nothing to us."
Exactly. Travis Duarte says, has there been any new dogman sightings within the last few months? I did hear of one, and it was here in Missouri. It was down in Berry County, almost to the Arkansas border. I'd have to find the report again to give you the exact location, but it's down in southern Berry County, kind of like if you're going to not Harrison, like if you're going to Eureka Springs, Arkansas. But it's down along one of the rivers down there. A guy that has a cabin down there said that he heard something woke him up in the middle of the night trying the doorknob to the cabin. And he thought it was somebody because there was other cabins nearby. He thought somebody was messing with him, trying to get into his cabin. So he peeked out the window and said at first he thought it was a gigantic wolf out there on his porch. And then it struck him that wolf has been trying the doorknob. And when he flipped the porch light on, it turned and bolted. And he said when it bolted on 2 legs.
The one that still scares me or gives me cold chills is the one you told about the guy who heard the dog going nuts at the top of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Because
arm and head were through the dog door.
Yeah, that would not be it. That'd be that'd definitely be a brown pants moment.
Yeah, apparently he emptied his gun into it, and when it ducked back out, he got a piece of plywood and covered the doggy door right then. Like, nope, the dog's going out the old-fashioned way from now on. No way.
Sorry, Scooter, you just lost your access.
That's right. I think after that point, I would no longer even be letting the dog out after dark.
No.
Like, you're either going to hold it or you're going to shit on the porch. Get him a box of dirt and a house plant in the corner. Like,
Yep.
after dark, that's where you go. Wyatt says it ain't fun when they start trying the door handles. That's a fact. You know, and that's not the first time I've heard that. There was a guy I talked to down by LBL that said he was camping at one of those cabins in the campgrounds there. They have cabins in LBL. And he said, you know, they kept hearing click, 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 click in the middle of the night as if something was messing with the door. He said, but when he got up and flipped the lights on and went in there, nothing was at the door. He said, so I kind of blew it off and thought it might have been another camper. He said, but I've wondered about that ever since because, you know, he said it happened like 3-4 nights in a row. And he said a lot of times there weren't campers nearby. They were across the campground. He said, surely I'd have seen somebody running off.
Maybe next time we go to LBL, we might need to rent one of those cabins for a night or two.
Yeah, that would be nice. I'd like to spend about a week in LBL at one of them cabins. I really would.
Because I'm gonna tell you, you know, it wasn't like I wasn't a believer before I went down there, but I'm definitely more of a believer after that night. And I'm like I said, Tyler's not. He wasn't truly a skeptic. He wholeheartedly believed things like that could exist. So he didn't go in thinking he went in with an open mind, but he was just like Steve our night in Combs Ferry. He was like, okay, I'm sold. He said that what was looking up that hill at us, he said that wasn't no little bitty animal. He said it wasn't skittish. He said whatever was looking up there at us was looking up there with a purpose. And, you know, he's not exactly a small youngin'. He's not easily scared. He's dang near close to 7 foot himself. And he was.
Speaking of weird confirmations and things like that, Noah and I popped in to see a buddy of ours that runs. Well, he used to work at one gun store in town where we did all our business, but he went to another one. So we went over to check out the new store. He got hired to run another store. And so we went over to see him, talk to him, hang out for a little bit. And lo and behold, guess who I ran into? My buddy Wes, that's been on the show, Native American. He's Navajo.
Oh, Wes,
he was there, got to see him, got to talk to him for a few minutes. Well, anyway, I showed him the pictures that we took of those deer in Joe Bald back in October that me and Noah found.
Mm-hmm.
And he was looking at them, and he spent some time like going over, like expanding and looking at these pictures. And he goes, where did you find this? And I told him, and he goes, this is not normal. He said, look how this bone is broken. He said, this bone was snapped off. He says, and then you can see the ligaments were twisted. He said, no person did this. It would have been easier just to take a knife or a hatchet and chop the leg off. He said, this is not chopped. This is mechanically separated. Something grabbed it and twisted this off. He said, I don't know where the hell you found this, but I wouldn't go back alone.
Well, fortunately, we're not going back alone. That is.
Yeah. And the weird thing is that is technically, if you count finding the head in a separate spot, that is the 4th time we found disarticulated deer like that, where bones have been snapped and they have not been taken apart in a normal way.
Yeah, it was anything but any of them. There was nothing normal about any of those.
Wyatt says, DA think it could be a gugway. Dude, from the amount of strength, it was something big. And I don't know. I would say it's not outside the realm of possibility for a Bigfoot or a dog man, either one, to do it. But if it had been a dog man, you would think you would have found some claw marks or teeth marks. But there were none. There were no claw marks whatsoever. These had been the legs had been twisted off like what they call a spiral fracture, when somebody grabs somebody's arm and twists it and the bone breaks in kind of a spiral pattern. This is how those were separated. They were grabbed and twisted off. The bones that were protruding from the joint were broken in a spiral pattern. These were not broken off in a normal way. Like if a poacher had got that, we would have found the gut pile, and we probably would have found much more of the animal. But what we found were legs and a head that had been pulled off, and along with the hide, the whole hide had just been pulled off, like you'd pull a sweatshirt off over somebody's head. And there were still vertebrae on the neck. It had not been cleanly cut.
Think back to when we found, we were looking for that dock the first time I was down there, and we went to Joe Bald. Remember that PVC pipe that we found?
Well, it was radial busted, like it grabbed him and twisted.
Yep, in opposite directions.
Mm-hmm. And that's why those bones were. They were radially broken. And that's the way that leg was in Combs Ferry too.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad 1981 just became a member of the channel. Hey, dude, thank you very much, man.
Hey,
welcome to the team. Appreciate you having you, man. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I was going to check and see if I still had some of those pictures up. Hold on. I don't think I do. No, I don't have any of them loaded. But we found them on Combs Ferry. We found them in Joe Bald, and we found them out at Blunk Road. Mm-hmm. And those are not right on top of each other. No. Where the James River, because Blunk Road is on the James River right before it feeds into Table Rock Lake. It's still on the river. It's not actually on the lake itself. It's probably 15 miles as the crow flies from Joe Bald. And Joe Bald is probably still another 5 or 6 miles as the crow flies from Combs Ferry. And Combs Ferry is on the opposite side of the lake.
Yep. Because, well, I mean, even where we pulled in or where we parked and got on the water, which was, way closer, it still took us 10 minutes by boat to get from where we were put in to Combs Ferry. That Table Rock Lake is a big lake.
It is like over 750 miles of shoreline.
Yeah. And I did first time we went to Joe Bald, and just looking at it from that area or that perspective, when we went back in the daytime, it looks big, but it's even bigger than it looks.
Well, if the ground's not frozen, then when you're down next, if the ground's not frozen, the lake is down right now. So we might have some good track traps.
Well, good. We know where it's at.
Yeah.
At least we know where one good one is, so we don't have to go looking for it.
Last time we were there, Noah and I went there in late October, and that blind that you found and hid in was still there then. Sorry, I needed to wet my whistle.
But there's
Wyatt says he can take us to a boat ramp where you can find some tracks. Dude, let's go. Let's do it.
Don't tempt me with a good time.
Exactly. I think I found a way to get into Combs Ferry over land, but we're going to have to park a ways away and hike in, which is probably good during the day. But if we can get a boat across and get in there at night, we're going to have to do it with a boat because you can't get in there even close once they shut that area down, because Combs Ferry is way out on a peninsula. and they've got a gate that blocks off that entire area because you can get into part of the peninsula to fish, but at dusk they lock off the entire peninsula. So it would be a bit of a hike to get back to Combs Ferry at night without taking a boat in.
And would we want to be that far away from a vehicle?
Yeah, it does make, when you're that far away from the vehicle, it does make exfiltration a bit of a chuck.
Especially if we piss something off again like we did last time.
I looking back in retrospect, I wish we'd have had Richard get on the spotlight every time he took a group, because I would like to have known how close they were to us the whole time. But we didn't check for eye shine until the last of us were pulling out.
I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't have wanted to know that.
Yeah, maybe he might not.
Especially when it was just me, you would know.
Yeah. But, I got a feeling they were that close to us and we just didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Because within 10 feet on either side of us was thick woods.
Hell, the freaking gnats were thick enough they could have snuck up on us without us seeing them.
Yeah. The gnats were like freaking fog. And there was kind of a light fog on the water.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an interesting night.
Well, here's to another one.
Many more to come. I know this isn't military related, but you remember when I took you down to Moon Valley, we talked about the 1999 Dallas County cannibal case, and how that house mysteriously burnt down.
No, I forgot all about that one.
Well, I was talking to Wes about that today, and he said there were actually people eating there. I said, yeah, we don't even know how many. They suspect it was a lot happening over a period of years. And he said that kind of evil leaves a stain on a place, and I wouldn't stay in that valley after dark if I were you.
Too late.
Yeah, we done did it.
We done it. Too late. We done been incensed.
Yeah, done got a free shot.
Don't look, Ethel.
Roxanne, I think they were closer than 10 yards. I think they were probably within about 5 yards, about 15 feet of us. And we couldn't even tell because the woods were so thick. K Bauer says, DA, that sounds almost like the Texarkana Dogman story, those guys out fishing. Does kind of sound like it, but we were getting picked up by the boat and didn't, the woods, well, that was the middle of July, so the foliage was thick. We couldn't see, more, without shining a flashlight directly into it. You couldn't see more than a few feet into the woods, and we were just using like headlamps just to light up our area. But when it was just me and Robbie, when me and Robbie and Noah were on the shore there was a point where we were getting enough rocks thrown at us that we had all three cleared leather and were standing with the heels of our boots in the water, with our backs to the lake. So there's no way anything could sneak up on us without us hear it splashing. At one point we were alarmed enough that we had cleared leather.
That is until we discover the Navy SEAL version of Bigfoot.
Right. Tell you, it comes up out of the water. Cajun Dog says, during the Civil War, wasn't there a battle close to Moon Valley? I don't know. I know Moon Valley was a Union supply area. They took a Union supply train through that area.
Yeah, because that's where Cry of the Wendigo was based. That whole.
But I haven't yet to find any skirmishes or anything that I can find. The closest big battles to Moon Valley would have been Wilson's Creek, obviously, Carthage, the Battle of Carthage, and there was a battle down near not Bolivar, down near Pleasant Hope. I think they call it the Battle of Lick Skillet or something like that, something weird like that.
There was thousands of little small skirmishes that didn't get
reported. Exchanged fire. Maybe a few guys were killed, but the Union did use that area, so it would not surprise me, especially since Quantrill's raiders came through this area fairly frequently. And if you believe the local legends, Quantrill hid Union gold all over these hills. I kind of hint at that in the Dark Frontiers books, because he kept a journal, but nobody knows what happened to the journal.
Declan's got it.
He hid guns and gold all over the Ozarks.
Declan's got it.
Yeah, Declan's got it. Big 44.3 Big Vic says, would it be possible to bring IR NVGs and an Aztec whistle to lure them in? Well, we've got the shofar. We don't have an Aztec whistle. I'd like to get one. Oh, you've got one. That's right.
Yeah.
But I don't have any NVGs. Honestly, I'd have to finance.
I'd
have to sizzle bubble gum right now. I'm not getting any big purchases. Oh yeah, okay. Well, I don't own any, so when Doc gets here, well, I guess we'll use his. I had a thermal cam, but the batteries exploded in it when we took it to Joe Bald. They were brand new batteries too. Go figure.
Yeah, you just put them in before we got there.
Killed it dead. Yeah, I had to throw it away. It was not.
My phone was on 82% and died by the time we pulled up. Pretty weird.
Cajun Dog says, "Yeah, I remember that from the book. I ain't hunting for that gold. I'd get eaten by something." Yeah, and God knows where he hit it. And the same thing is said about Jesse James, Frank and Jesse James and the James Younger gang. Supposedly they hit a number of banks all over Missouri and would hide the bulk of the money to come back for it later. Because if you still, because most of the money back then you could get were in gold, like $20 gold coins and smaller. But there was still script money. There was still paper money, but a lot of what they took, especially in strong boxes, was in gold. And it is tough to get away from a posse if you're carrying 500 pounds of gold. So these guys would take what they needed to keep moving, and they'd cash the rest up and plan to come back for it, but not in and always get back for it. So I would love to have some like Quantrill's journal or Frank and Jesse James' journal, and find out where they buried some of that stuff.
Because chances of them going back and getting every bit of it before,
pretty coming to an untimely end.
Yeah.
Jay says Amazon has NVGs for less than $200. Dude, like I said, I'd have to sizzle bubble gum right now, so I'm not making any purchases like that. To me, that would be a huge purchase right now. Striker 479 says, cave networks all over the place, many unexplored or hidden away on somebody's back 40. Exactly. There's thousands of caves in Missouri. Sonny says, DA, are dogmen found in the West, or are they more of a Midwest East Coast thing? Actually, there's dogman sightings in just about every state. Some more so than others, but yeah, they're seen pretty much everywhere. In fact, a good resource, look at mapsquatch.com, MAPSQUATCH, mapsquatch.com, and they have UFO, Bigfoot, and dogman sightings on there. You can filter it by what you're looking for, but you'd be surprised how many are in places you wouldn't think they are. Cajun Dog says, yeah, I'm kin to the James Younger gang by blood. Funny you should say that. My grandfather's name was Jesse James West. The West family had a farm up near Kearney, Missouri, and he was allegedly named after one of his cousins. Richie says, not Florida, zero dogman. I've heard of dogman sightings in the Panhandle. In the Florida Panhandle.
Yeah, and Johnny, remember? He claims he had Johnny Sanchez was my co-host on What's Really Out There. He grew up in Florida, and he actually had a dogman encounter in Florida.
Chris says all the nods and thermals, Chris Burkhardt, all the nods and thermals are great, but get in the woods and sit down for 30 minutes and get acclimated to the sounds of night vision, you'll be fine. Yeah, I've been saying that for a long time. When I go into an area, especially a new area, the first thing I do is just sit for a while. And go in and be quiet and just listen. Let your eyes acclimate. Let the night sounds return. Because once the night sounds get used to your presence, that's a good indicator when something is there that ain't supposed to be there. Because you can kill the night sounds yourself just by showing up. Roxanne says, didn't the Bass brothers ride with Jesse James? I don't recall. Well, Patty says the James Boys hit a few banks in Lexington. I was told by a historian it hidden in caves on the banks of the river. Yeah, they hit the one in Gallatin, Missouri. They hit the bank in Lexington, Missouri. Of course, they also rode with Quantrill's Raiders. Frank and Jesse James and the younger brothers rode with Quantrill, and Quantrill fought both battles of Lexington, Missouri. There were, two battles fought at Lexington.
There's Johnny on there.
Hey, Johnny.
I can't remember who said that it wasn't, but like Johnny believes that there's Dogman in Florida, don't you, Johnny?
Yeah, Ryan, Jesse James the outlaw, not Jesse James the biker.
Yeah. Although he claims he's related to that one. Don't know if he is or not, but that's what he claims. But he's probably doing that to up his, I won't say stock, but up his entertainment value.
Well, considering how many siblings Jesse had, that could potentially be a lot of people related to him now.
Okay, so yes, we stepped out of the car in Joe Ball the very first time that he took me, and it was, to use the term dead quiet. There was nothing.
It was unnervingly quiet.
And then when I was with Jessica up in Georgia, we were talking, and we were having to like literally yell at each other. We were standing 2 feet apart and having to yell so we could hear each other over the crickets and everything. We were standing there for 20 minutes having a conversation, and all of a sudden, it's like somebody unplugged a jukebox in the middle of a dance hall. Yep, dog band at 70 miles an hour. That's the story me and Johnny told on our show about
Kay Bowers. I really can't, because he's still involved in the community, and by the community I mean the Spec Ops community. So he's still involved in the community and would kick my ass up around my shoulder blades if I started talking out of school. So I won't tell you his name. I won't tell you what branch. I can't tell you any of that because I don't want to burn my friend or piss him off.
Yeah, because it wouldn't be good.
Linda Bergman, yes, it was the James Younger gang. And the Youngers rode with him, and up until the botched bank robbery up in somewhere in Minnesota, where the Youngers, half of them got shot and captured. Richie says, real question, DA, where in the Florida Panhandle? What states is it near? I believe, if I remember correctly, it was near the Georgia line, the Florida-Georgia line, in one of the swamps. That's cool, Roxanne. She said Sam Bass rode with the James gang. She consulted the Googles and said my son was related to Sam Bass on his dad's side. Cool.
Hey, the Googles strikes again.
Sometimes, though, you got to take what you get from the Googles with a grain of salt.
True. The Googles ain't always right, but neither is the people's.
That is true. I was trying to see if I could locate that Dogman report that was in.
Okay, I must have missed a joke. I don't know what band are you talking about? What's my favorite band?
I don't know.
He said Robbie's favorite band. LOL. I'm picking. Did we talk about a band?
Okay, I'm missing that one too.
Okay, so make sure I wasn't the only one. Kevin says, I say the Googles all the time now.
Who was asking about the one near the dogman encounter in Florida near Georgia?
Richie Evans, I think.
Okay. Richie, it's one of those encounter stories I got that they asked to not have their name. Their name. I get them in my email all the time, but they didn't want their name revealed because they work for the Department of Fish and Game, and it was in the Osceola National Forest near Rockville. And apparently that is a rather dense forest.
Yeah, thick too.
I don't know where Rockville is in Florida / Georgia, but that's the nearest town. But it wasn't actually right near the town, but that was the nearest one. It was somewhere south of there in the Osceola National Forest near something called the Big Gum Swamp Wilderness. GUM, not GUN, Big Gum. Just a guy says, don't the Florida Fish and Wildlife FWG dudes have like federal or near federal training? I think they do go to one of the schools that the federal national parks guys use. Some of them, I can't remember who it was, but some of them are trained by. There's one group, and it might be Texas. No, Texas trains their own. I can't remember who it was. That there's one state that they supposedly send their guys to. The same training place that the U.S. Marshals use. I can't remember the name of it.
No, FLETC's not. Yeah, FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. Or
that might be it. But there's supposedly one state that's where they send their guys. Richie says at least 4 to 6 hours away from Crystal River, Florida. Yeah, that's pretty far. But it was, from the look of it, I just pulled it up on the map to look at it. And it is in the butt crack of nowhere. I mean, the butt crack of nowhere. That does not look like someplace I would want to get off the beaten path because you might not find it again. Sorry. My allergies are bothering me. My eyes are itching.
Me too.
Well, Patty, I'm sorry. I completely forgot all about it. I get so many emails. Yours got pushed down the list. So I'll try to dig that out and get that sent off to you tonight. 443 Big Vic. That's funny, dude.
What do you say?
Just Ryan says, butt crack of nowhere. Put that on a t-shirt. Yeah, I've been saying that for forever. If something's out in the middle of nowhere, I refer to it as the butt crack of nowhere.
BFE.
Linda Bergman says, is that area still dealing with snow and ice in Arkansas? Heard that a huge area was getting hit this last blizzard. Most of what we got hit with is already melted. There's still a little on the ground in areas that are mostly shaded, like under trees and stuff. But for the most part, what we got hit with has already gone away. All the roads are clear except for some of the back roads. But I'm hoping that it all melts away and gives us a chance to dry up a little bit before we start trying to get into the woods again in the next couple of weeks. So
if it don't, we'll Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Damn right. So there was another fairly famous military incident with a group of Bigfoot that were eating people. That was in North Carolina. A sheriff in a small area, a small one of the mountainside communities up there. There were people that kept going missing, and they ended up calling in a group of special forces, and they engaged a group of them.
That was
That
one of
story's
Navy.
been floating around for a while.
Yeah, the group of Navy SEALs that went up there and handled business.
Just a guy, yeah, that's not uncommon. These are, a lot of people say that I seem to think that these cryptids are the big cuddly Ewoks of the forest, the big teddy bears, but that is not the case. There's Native American lore going back decades and generations of these things carrying people off to eat. We've got all the missing people from the missing 411, and I guarantee you, not all of them were taken off, just to play checkers with. But yeah, I firmly believe that in some cases these things were eating folks.
Took them off to play checkers with. See, that's the problem. Bigfoot's playing chess while we're all playing checkers.
That's right.
That's why he's always 2 steps ahead.
DVB, yeah, federal the in Glencoe, Georgia. That's the one I was thinking of.
Yep, Fletzy.
Hey, can you cover things for a minute? I have to step into my other office across the hallway. I will be right back.
Have at it. So, what do you want to talk about? But yeah, DVB, that's FLETC is what we were talking about earlier. Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, I think is what it stands for. There's a lot of agencies that do training there. Matter of fact, my chief just sent out an email last week, I think. There was a training coming up down there that he was wanting some of the school resource officers to go to. So, well, Billy, I mean, however you want to look at it. 2 steps ahead because he's got long legs, or 2 steps ahead because he's playing chess while we're playing checkers. I mean, that's how it is. Yeah, there you go, Big Vic. But that's the problem. People want to, because you got things like the Ewoks, they're all cute and cuddly and friendly and all this other stuff. And people just want to imprint that on what these are. And if they are just animals like we think they are, they're wild animals, and they're going to do what wild animals do. And Roxanne, no, I haven't heard anything recently. Last thing I heard, probably was the last time we talked about it on here. It's kind of went quiet about that, but there is a reason that I'm doing a lot of research into that area right now. Roxanne asked if I'd heard anything about the howl anymore. I told her there's a reason that I'm going to be doing a lot of research for that area.
Speaking of that howl, y'all want to hear it again?
Sure.
I still have that one.
I'm sure there's people on here who have not heard that. And just to preface it for anybody who's in here that hasn't heard it, this was in South Carolina, where I live, where Sonia lives. I think, Billy, don't you live in South Carolina as well? And Rodney, who's in the chat, Johnny, or I don't know if Rodney's in tonight. I didn't see him, but Johnny's in the chat. All of us from South Carolina, and this is pretty close to at least me, Johnny, Rodney, and Sonia.
Maybe I don't have it saved. I thought I did.
You've played it all the time. You have to have it somewhere. I know you. You never throw anything away on your computer.
Here we go.
That is canine.
Yep.
That is definitely canine.
Yes, Sonia, that is a very good place to go do some research about what we were talking about.
I
thought you were close, Billy. So yeah, but you know the area.
As big 443 Big Vic says, yeah, if we hear that out of Joe Bolt, that will definitely be a pucker factor. Pucker factor and a clear and leather moment,
and
or at least dropping a bolt on something.
Yep. And taking what you and I were talking about before we went on the air in consideration, and how close that Hal was to where I'm talking about, and where Sonia said, "Hey, you want to go to Jumping Off Rock?" That's all right in that area. So,
well, that's close to the area you called the horse pasture.
Yeah, that Jumping Off Rock.
Were you talking about that lady that went missing?
That's where she went missing, was in the horse pasture.
They found one of her dogs, but not the other one.
Yeah, or her, and they found like the dog treats, and I mean it was, and this was not just. I don't know how she was as far as an outdoorsman or a hiker or anything like that, but she knew how to take care of herself because she was like the former chief of Greenville County EMS. So it wasn't like she didn't know what to do if something happened to her, unless she got knocked out.
Right.
But cadaver dogs nor tracking dogs could find her. And it was in the horse pasture, which is what Tanya was talking about, Jumping Off Rock. That's in the horse pasture. Me and my dad.
Was that one of those cases where the dogs wouldn't track or they couldn't find it?
Though I don't know who any of the handlers were, so I haven't been able to. I'm just, the way it said was cadaver canines nor tracking canines were able to find. I don't know if that means they wouldn't track or they couldn't find it. But to me, if something, number one, if they got cadaver dogs.
The fact that they brought cadaver dogs.
Yeah, I mean, that says something. But, I mean, I guess that was just kind of one of those, we don't know if she is or she isn't, so we're gonna cover all our bases. We're gonna bring tracking dogs in, and we're gonna bring the cadaver dogs in. Now, if nobody knows anything about how cadaver dogs work, they can put those dogs in a boat and float them around on the surface of the lake, and they can pinpoint where a body has been sunk in the lake. So these dogs are good.
Now, decomp gives off a certain scent, and it will bubble to the surface as gases are released.
So, like I said, I don't know if that was just we're going to cover all bases right from the jump, and they still haven't found anything. And that's been, what, Sonia, like 2-3 months ago?
Well, there was a lady went missing down here on one of the trails near Ozark, Missouri. They found both of her dogs, and they tried to play it off that her dogs had did it. But they found the dogs, but they never found her.
Yeah, well,
that was just a few years ago.
Well, that's this one. They found one dog, and then found stuff for the other dog, but couldn't find her or the other dog. And literally, I want to say she went missing a couple of months after that howl had been posted. Because I think that howl was posted in August, and she went missing in like October, November, somewhere around in there.
Well, a creature like that, if nothing else, it's going to be opportunistic. Any predator is. If it sees an opportunity for an easy kill with minimal risk, it's going to take it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of research about the horse pasture over the next little bit.
Jay Freiberg says, I've never smelled it. What does decomp smell like? I can't really describe it, but it's one you will never forget. And once you get it on, like if you're in the area around, and it's kind of a sickly sweet smell almost.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're in the area, that I don't know if it's oily or what, but it'll stick to your clothes. It'll stick to your beard and hair, and you will smell that in your nostrils for days. You can go home and shower. This is as hot as you can stand it, and wash multiple times, and you'll get out, get dried off, set down, and it'll hit that smell. It hits you again.
You remember how bad stuff like that used to be when we had those old polyester uniforms? Oh God, you just had to throw.
You couldn't get it out of. You might as well throw it away.
You just had to throw them away, which is probably why departments always had so dang many of them uniforms. And
because they knew, this
yeah.
one's just.
I mean, you could go in a little single wide trailer where somebody was smoking, and that uniform for months would, no matter how many times you washed it, for months would smell like you were still standing in that trailer, because it would just, that stuff would just, and that's what he
Some
said.
scents
But
just
10 times
attached to
worse.
fabrics.
Yeah,
Don't
but
know
this is
why.
10 times worse.
But yeah, like Robert was saying, the smell of decomp sticks to you. And when I worked at the hospital, security had to be present to sign out all bodies, especially bodies that were marked for autopsy. We had to sign out all the bodies. We'd better sign them out and release them to funeral homes, and we had to make sure the chain of custody was followed whenever one was there for an autopsy for investigation. So we had to be down there to help process pretty much all of the bodies, and that's a smell. Oh, and the worst is a floater. Oh.
I don't know. I think it's bad. That's bad, but I think somebody who's been burnt smells worse than a floater.
Burnt. I can almost pretend that it's just burnt barbecue because it kind of has that burnt pork smell to it. But a floater, there is no smell quite like it. Oh my God,
They're
I'm
both
sick
bad.
to the stomach thinking about it.
They're both bad.
They are horrible. Sorry, folks. Yeah, that just that's just a bad memory.
Sometimes things like just stick with you, and you just sense one of the strongest senses tied to your memory. So you start talking about something, a smell, especially a bad smell, and it brings every one of those back to you.
I've never had to throw up at one, but I've came damn close. We unzipped a bag for an autopsy, and I was like, I had to walk out of the room, get air. I mean, I was about to puke. It was. Ugh.
Did you puke at your first autopsy?
No, I did not. I was pretty fascinated by it. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it was also kind of detached, because even though it was a person, it didn't really connect because it didn't look real. I mean, I knew it was a real person, but it just didn't seem real.
I'll give you that. It looked like a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it looked like something out of a bad movie. It was. Yeah. I couldn't see myself getting used to it, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I guess it really depends on.
Sorry, Casey.
What did he say?
He said, "You guys are hard on me." 443 says Vicks Vapo Rub is a frickin' lie. Doesn't help a whole lot. Not much, no. There ain't much that'll help. There's stuff that'll help tone it down, but nothing ever really gets rid of it.
Best case scenario, you're smelling that with the Vicks 44. I mean, it doesn't stop it.
Hey, let's get off that subject before it turned my stomach. And I'm sure the folks don't want to hear us talking about the worst crime scenes we've ever seen.
Yeah, because I'm sure we could, between me and you, especially if we get Doc and Steven here, we could fill a whole show with the stuff that the four of us have seen.
Yeah. Stuff that the folks probably best not know, and don't will give folks nightmares.
By the time it's over with, we'd probably just be four people in the studio: me, you, and Doc and Steve.
Probably. What's another famous one? Do you remember the is it Camp Lejeune?
Camp Lejeune's the Marine Corps base in North Carolina. Yeah,
there were some guys. There were some guys out on an exercise.
Yep.
And had one walk right through their perimeter area.
Well, there's been a lot of them.
There's one out in California too, almost the same thing. They almost shot at it.
Yeah. Trying to think. But there's been Dogman and Bigfoot sightings.
29 Palms, yeah.
Yeah, 29 Palms, and there's Camp Pendleton. That's out in California.
Sentinel was stationed out there. I'd like to get him on again one of these nights. Get him tell us some stories.
Yeah, my brother was at 29 Palms for a while when he was in California. I get a random text from him one night of a house on a street, and he says, "Hey, recognize this?" And I'm like, and I was looking at it, and I was like, and I said, I knew it looked familiar, but I'm like, should I? He said, imagine a motorcycle parked right here, and he drew a circle around it. It was the house from Top Gun that Kelly McGillis lived in. When I was like, no. He's like, yep, this is the house. I'm like, holy crap.
Just Ryan saying they've spotted the Yucca Man at 29 Palms, which is a desert Bigfoot. U.S. Border Patrol has talked about seeing both Bigfoot and Dogman along the border.
Yep. About hearing a freaking gunfight go off and going down there and finding
a group of drug dealers torn apart by a group of dogmen. Sonia says, I have an ex that was a Marine in the Marines. He saw some things at 29 Palms. Yeah, I know a lot of guys that have served at some of these more remote bases. There's another really good story out of, I think it's Fort Greely, Alaska. There was a group of special forces up there that were training doing their Arctic training, and they were out doing patrols out into the deep woods off of base, way out in the bush country of Alaska. And it was just them practicing Arctic survival. And they were armed because you have to be up there because you might run into bears or God knows what else. But these guys were armed because they were in the middle of nowhere. And there was a special forces group, and they cut across a set of tracks, of Bigfoot type tracks. So the tracks were approximately 22 inches long, and the stride was about 6 feet. And this is in 3 feet of snow. So they followed it. They decided, what the hell? Let's see what this is. And while they were tracking it, they said it used the same tricks they would use to throw off evasions. It would cut back on its own tracks. It would go around clearings so it wouldn't be out in the open where they could see it. It was using the same tricks they were taught to throw off to evade being pursued. And they started gaining ground on the thing, and they were getting pretty close. And when they got within about 100 yards of it, they heard what they referred to as the most god awful roar they'd ever heard in their lives, and they decided that was a real good time to stop tracking the thing, and went on about their business.
Well, I would be curious to know, the Mountaineer Warfare Training Center does the Mountaineer training.
Mm-hmm.
So they go way up in the mountains of California. I think it's in Bridgeport, California, maybe. I would be curious to know if there's because you would think up in them, that's the Cascades up there, right?
Yeah.
You would think there's probably been some people that have had some encounters and some run-ins.
Well, you want to terrify yourself. Look at the map, like on MapSquatch, at the number of sightings in the Cascades alone.
Oh, I know. That's what I'm saying. As many classes as they run up there, and that may be a thing that keeps sightings down in that particular area because they do run a lot of that, and that's a lot of armed individuals running around. So maybe there's not a lot. But maybe like when they first really started going up there and doing that training, I would be curious to know if there was incidents that happened.
Vicky Dennison says, my uncle was in Vietnam and he talked about hairy things killing soldiers.
Okay.
I've read several stories of what they used to refer to as the LRRPs, LRRP, long range reconnaissance patrols, of those guys encountering the rock apes. I've read several accounts of that. There's a couple of books. I think I still have them on my bookshelf. I can dig them out one of these days and actually read the actual accounts. But there's lots of down through the years. There are lots of times when not only just the U.S. military but other militaries have encountered Bigfoot type creatures. In fact, there is a story that a buddy of mine sent me that was in a German newspaper, and I want to see if I still got it, because if I don't, I'll email him and see if he can find me the story again. But it was about, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with military and police units in Germany. There's one called Grenzschutzgruppe 9, GSG 9. and they are pretty freaking high end. And apparently, they were doing some training out in the Schwarzwald and ran into a group of these things, and it turned into a firefight as they unasked the AO, as Doc would put it.
Yeah, GSG-9 used to train a lot with SEAL Team 6. That tells you.
GSG-9 are hardcore. You know,
when
to qualify for GSG-9, they have their own closed course with a remote controlled car that runs the course, and you've got to be in a chopper and with the door open, and you have to engage that car and kill only. They've got dummies in it. You've got to kill only the terrorists in that car from a moving chopper
on a moving target.
On a moving target. When I read that, I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's
hardcore. Yeah, Isabel, the Black Fort, the Schwarzwald. Casey Calloway says there's an account of a helicopter pilot seeing one in the top of a tree in Vietnam. Does not surprise me, man. Lil Patty says my brother was in Vietnam, but he would never talk about what he saw over there. I've got 3 brothers that were in Vietnam, but one was an Air Force crew chief, so he did not put any time in country. He was stationed at a base, and they would fly bomb missions. And the other one was in the Navy, but my brother my brother Danny, who passed away just a couple of years ago, he was a door gunner on a Huey, and he had some very interesting stories to tell. I can tell you that.
DVB2 was talking about what I was talking about before.
Lizard Men of Quang Binh.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just like a rough sampling. I mean, we've got literally hundreds of military sightings, and from the Giants of Kandahar, from like Doc was saying, that he knew crew chiefs on C-130s that would routinely see these creatures on FLIR when they flew in and out of air bases in Afghanistan. So it's not just the giant, the Giants of Kandahar. There are a lot of stories coming out of Afghanistan, and there's stories of these creatures all over the world. Hell, the Russians even engaged one somewhere up in the Urals. There's stories of Russians capturing one during World War II to try to use for their super soldier breeding program, but it escaped after killing a number of guys on the train. Apparently, they had managed to subdue it in a cave, chained it up, and got it on the train, was taking it to Moscow. But in transit, it broke loose, killed several soldiers, and jumped off the train.
I think somebody wrote a book based on that. I can't remember the name of it or who wrote it, but I've read a synopsis of a book that kind of had that same premise.
Irene Duet says in the 1960s, soldiers at Bushwell NATO base refused to leave their barracks after dark. This is one just recently declassified stories from the Russian military. This is old Soviet, not modern Russian. From the old Soviet military, there was a Soviet missile sub somewhere up near the Barents Sea. And they were going along quietly like missile subs are supposed to do. And they said that something in the water started knocking on the hull. They at first they thought it was just like them bumping up against ice or something, but it was rhythmic, like knock, 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 knock. And then it would move a little farther down the hull and it would do it again. And by the time it had made it the length of the submarine, the captain gave the signal for emergency surface because they thought there was something big outside their hull. They were getting some sort of biological signature and they didn't know what it was that was nearly the size of the sub. And they did an emergency blow and went to the surface and it didn't follow them. Cajun Dog says, didn't a Russian unit get wiped out back in the 70s? Yes, I remember reading about that too. That was the Barmanu.
Yeah, Arkansas. I think I saw a movie like that too, but I know I read a book synopsis that had that general setup on it.
Yeah, it sounds really familiar to me too. Like I heard it somewhere.
You know what?
Striker 479 says there's a similar story from the country of Georgia of Soviets responding to an incident. They encounter what they describe as a wild man and ended up killing it and taking it back to Moscow. Northwood says a brown pants moment even worse on a submarine. Yeah, if I was on a submarine, heard something outside the hull tapping like it wanted in, yeah, that's a bad day.
Yeah, because ain't much you can do.
Right. What do you think is the strangest one you've ever heard, Robbie?
Hold on. I think I just found. Nope,
What'd
that
you
wasn't
find?
it. I thought I might have found the book that had that synopsis because I'm pretty sure I put it on my wish list. But I thought it might
Cagey
be
Dog says he doesn't think it was Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
probably not Ariel. Honestly, the scariest one because they're all kind of in different ways have their elements of wow, that's creepy. But for me, for some reason, and I guess it's just because it's way back in time, not modern. They're out, and the one with the Roman legionnaires, you know, because in my mind's eye, I can just see these guys out there with nothing but swords and spears and shields in this fog covered forest, and all of a sudden they're just surrounded by all these werewolves, dogmen. That is
That supposedly happened in Germany near Teutoburg.
yeah, that's just primordial. That's just that it to me is the stuff of nightmares. Being out and just walking in the woods, but not like we would with heavy firepower. You got swords and spears and shields, and that's it, and a little bit of armor.
Yeah.
So I guess just for how, and I guess maybe if if I was in that time, it probably would still be scary, but knowing the technology we have now versus what they had to protect themselves then, that just I don't know, that just kind of terrifies me.
I don't blame you. Michelle said she saw a dead animal in Kentucky, 90% sure it was a Sasquatch. She didn't report it because she didn't want to talk to the men in black. I can't blame you there. Randall Kildare says, I was attacked by a German Shepherd at 3 years old. The dogman stuff keeps me up at night. So do werewolf movies. Yeah, I can understand that. And Craig Schultz says, have you heard the interview of a Fort Knox soldier about them killing a family of 4 Bigfoot on night maneuvers? It was on KBRO. I have not. If you if you can find the link to that, like, could you email that to me? I would love to check that story out. My email is daroberts@daroberts.net. Striker 479 says World War I had stories of apparent cryptids such as hellhounds eating corpses in no man's land and killing the living, as was seeing demons and cryptids in the forests and the trenches. Well, of course, then you've got the alleged werewolves of World War II, and there's some speculation on whether they meant that's just what they called them or that's what they were trying to create. The Ulfhednar from Norse mythology, were they dogmen like creatures, or were they men that literally turned into some type of wolf? Yes, it could just very well be possible they were just normal guys.
And don't forget them hotel metal neighbors.
Yeah, hotel metal neighbors. But we've got lots of lore from different cultures of men who become like wolves. The Hotametaneo of Cheyenne and Lakota lore, the Ulfhednar, the werewolves. There's lots of stories about about men who become wolves.
The term werewolf is is Germanic in its origin anyway. I mean, that
Casey says, okay, Robbie, Clark and the Centurion did it with swords and shields.
I ain't Clark and Gideon. I'm good.
Using a locker door and a sword. Crandall Kildare says there was a ceasefire declared between Germany and Russia in World War I for men being slain by wolves, if I recall. There's also the story of the Russian unit that went into Finland and was massacred to a man. I mean, an entire I think it was an entire battalion went into this one valley looking for partisans and got wiped out. Craig Schultz says DA was a deathbed story. He was dying of cancer. Kentucky Bigfoot Research Organization website. I'll see if I can find it. If just in case I can't, if you happen to run across it, send it to me. But I'll go there later this evening and see if I can hunt that up. Sonia says, I'm thankful you pronounced that, DA. Yeah, it's Hotametaneo.
There's like 2 extra O's at the end.
Or Hotel Metal Neighbors if you're Margolin.
Yeah. Or Tomato Bazooka.
Tomato Bazooka. Gotta love Margolin.
Everybody does.
JDW of 2150 says supposedly the Russians and the Germans banded together to fight the wolves. There were stories in World War I of werewolves coming out into no man's land and carrying off bodies.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was the British and the Germans worked together to fight them off at the time. 443 Big Vic says, don't forget during World War II, the Russians and Germans had to fend off wolves after Stalingrad. That doesn't surprise me. Number of bodies on the ground doesn't surprise me at all. Every predator for 100 miles was coming in for an easy meal.
Yep.
Linda Bergman says, I bet that Agent Orange was sprayed over there, killed lots of people and animals. It was one of my uncles, and he ended up with awful skin problems and several types of cancer. Isabel's talking about Rome having a wolf attack. True. The Romans and the Greeks both talked about cynocephaly. Alexander the Great talked about the cynocephaly.
Yep. And if you want to look at Greek mythology, King Lycan, or Lycaon, however you want to pronounce it. I mean, I know
some say Lycaon, some say Lycian, some say Lycan,
because that's where the term lycanthrope came from.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the story that he had Zeus at a come to a banquet, and he wanted to see if he could, how powerful Zeus really was, if he could fool him. He had his chefs, cooks, whatever you want to call them, prepare human flesh.
Actually, it was one of Lycian's sons.
No, one of his sons got turned with him.
Oh, I thought it was he had one of his sons killed and served.
Well, there are 3 or 4 different stories around it. So they all say kind of the same thing, but the main gist of the story is he tried to serve Zeus human flesh to see if he could fool Zeus, see if Zeus was really as powerful as he said he was. Zeus obviously knew it right off the bat. He cursed King Lycaon, King Lycon, whatever you want to call him. Cursed him and his sons to be forever be beasts, and that's supposedly where the first werewolves came from in Greek mythology, anyway.
Yeah, Kevin Bode said there were reports of bodies being removed by Bigfoot at Shiloh, Chickamauga as well. Old green eyes of Chickamauga. DVB2 says, what jumped? God dang it! Simo Haya. AKA the White Death, the Finnish sniper, killed over 500 Soviet troops. Yeah, see, he was a beast. There's another one I was gonna. Where did it go? Oh, this one's new on me. Striker 479 says there's a report out of the Ukraine back in, I think he means 2014 instead of 2104, that there was something in the forest that made the Russian soldiers kill each other. The Ukrainian soldiers couldn't figure out what it was. If you can find a link to that, please send that to me, because that was something I would like to very much dig into.
Yeah, there's a lot of these, and probably even that many more that we don't even know about because nobody was maybe even left alive to report it. But there's so many of these little things that are, that are scattered throughout history that, because when we were talking about this, you'd be like, well, I don't know a whole lot of them, but we've heard about what, 5 or 6, maybe even 10 new ones tonight that we never even heard of.
Just Ryan says, imagine if the Egyptian god Anubis is an actual dog man. Anubis or Wepelwet, either one. Wepelwet was a wolf-headed. Anubis was a jackal-headed, but Wepelwet was his brother, and they were both, guardians of the underworld. So there's at least 2 references of a dog-headed god in the Egyptian mythology, but they also had several others with heads of animals.
Most all of the Egyptian gods were some type of were creature. You had Horus, who had the head of a hawk. You had Whipplewet and Anubis. What was the cat? The cat, was that Bast?
Bast.
And then you had Set. It was was Set the crocodile?
I think he was.
No, Set, the one with the crocodile started with a G. What was that? Dang it. Gonna drive me up the wall now. I'm gonna have to get on the Googles, unless you're already on it looking.
I'm already looking. The one with the crocodile head was Sobek. Sekhmet had the head of looks like a cat. Bast had the head of a cat. Kek had the head of what looks like a snake. Khonshu is, I don't know, I can't tell what it is, something green. Horus had the head of a
falcon or hawk or whatever.
Thoth had the head of a long-beaked bird. I'm not sure what that is. Set had the head of, I don't know, can't really say what that is.
I thought maybe Set was more human.
No,
Ra.
What was weird? I can't tell what it is.
What was Ra?
Of course, Anubis had the head of a jackal. Ra had the head of a bird.
I thought so. Was it like a blackbird, like a raven, or something?
Almost like a falcon or something like that. Like a falcon or an eagle.
Well, I think
because the picture looks almost identical to Horus.
I think Ra was Horus's mother. If I'm not as up on Egyptian mythology as I am like Greek and Roman mythology, but it was just not as interesting to me when I was doing all the study on it. But I know who a lot of them are, but I don't know as much about that one as I do Greek and Norse and Roman.
Yeah, I'm not as well versed in Egyptian mythology either.
And that's, as far as.
Thank you, Striker. He said he sent me the link to the encounter in Ukraine. I'll check that out. KC says, if you could turn into a wolf man, would you? Probably. Yeah, I probably would.
Yep. He's one of them Hotel Metal neighbors.
But, we've got military encounters from militaries around the world dating back, well, since the beginning of recorded history, essentially. Um, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, they talk about the Sumerian gods was described very much like a Bigfoot. He was an enormous beast. Um, there's lots of stories of this dating back.
Beowulf.
Beowulf. Um, you've got stories from the Australian military encountering the Yowie. I mean, we've got all over the place and down through history. We've got numerous stories of these encounters. So,
'Cause
if
you could technically count Beowulf into a military encounter because
they were the military of their day.
Yeah. Well, think about because if you want to call them cryptids, dragons, think about all the legends from King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table going and fighting dragons and things like that. I mean, I'm
St.
sure
George and the dragon.
Yeah.
Well, again, much like Bigfoot, pretty much every mythology on the planet's got some type of dragon creature.
Yeah, Richie, that's he's talking about the movie coming out, The Wolfman. That's a loose remake of the original Wolfman. It does not look good. If you've not seen the trailer, watch the trailer. It does not look good at all. It's Blumhouse made it, and it does not look like they did a good job on it.
Well, that's unfortunate.
I may be 100% wrong, but it just does not look. It doesn't look faithful to the. And I'm one of those people that I think the Antonio, and I'm not a big Antonio Banderas. No, not Antonio Banderas. Benicio del Toro. I'm not a big Benicio del Toro fan, but I think that they did a pretty decent job with that movie. I mean,
it wasn't bad. The effects were good.
Yeah, but it's Rick Baker. I mean, you can't go wrong bringing Rick Baker in and doing practical effects on a movie like that. Rick Baker's the one that did the effects for American Werewolf in London. Yeah, he did that. He started on The Howling, and they hired him off of The Howling onto American Werewolf in London, which won an Academy Award. One of the first ever horror movies to win an Academy Award for Best Makeup. And
Wyatt's quoting Margolin on you. Always pack for dragons.
Yeah, always pack for dragons.
Frank Margolin. Note to self, always pack for dragons.
Yep. But there's been 2 Academy Award nominations and wins for Best Makeup in a horror movie. They were both werewolf movies, and they were both won by Rick Baker because he won it for his work on The Wolfman with Benicio del Toro.
Yep.
He's got it. He's the man. Did you catch the homage and what you to that today and what you read?
I must have missed it. What was it?
Rick.
Oh,
last name is a little bit different, but that's what that was for.
Yeah, I got it. Took me a second, but yeah.
Yeah. I wondered if any of you had caught that, but that's a deep dive. You got to be a real horror geek like me to know or to catch something like that. But that's what it was from, or for rather.
Yeah. Sonia says she caught it.
I figured she would. Doc was really the only one I figured would catch it. I don't know if he caught it or not, but because he knows the movies, I don't know that he is into the whole production part of it like I am. But what was I gonna say? For every 3, 4, 5 stories that we do get, there's probably 30 that are redacted or never.
Just nobody ever came forward about, or
yeah. So I mean, I think just the ones that we've heard about, I think it's interesting to kind of especially when we first started talking about doing this topic tonight, I'm sitting there thinking, well, we got this, but I didn't think about the fact that what.
Look at the comment I just put up. Would you mind reaching out to either me or Robbie and giving us a little bit more information about that? We'd like to be able to plot that and maybe check that area out if you don't mind.
I know where that area is.
Reach out to either me or Robbie, or you can email me and I can forward it to Robbie. Send it to me at DAEroberts@DAEroberts.net. I would love to hear the whole story. Hey, KC gave us a super chat. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, KC. Yeah, that definitely get in touch with us because that's my area. Well, that's my area is in my state, so I can definitely look into stuff for that this area.
Do you have to be up early, Robbie?
I mean, I got to go to work in the morning, but you got something?
I was just thinking about doing something, but we'll save it for another time. Because I got to remember you're an hour behind me.
Yeah.
We are at the 2-hour mark, folks. There are a lot of encounter stories with military, and if any of y'all that were out there that were in the military, if you had an encounter story, please send it to us here at DAExMachiNation, DAEroberts at DAEroberts.net, because we'd love to talk about your encounter story on the air. And if it was like a major encounter, we might even have you come on and talk about it yourself. But some of these encounters need to be told. Unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that still don't believe in these creatures, and they're probably not gonna until they see one for themselves. But it seems like this is a much safer topic to talk about anymore. Lots of shows like ours. There's lots of cryptid shows on major networks now, so it's a little more mainstream than it was even say 10 years ago. But there still is a certain amount of stigma. People are like, oh, you're crazy if you think Bigfoot's real or stuff like that. But like Robbie has pointed out on many occasions, I think it's a much bigger leap of the imagination to think that there is a global conspiracy dating back 5,000 years to make up this lie
and to keep it going.
That there had to have been some gigantic secret society out there that decided, you know what, we're gonna hoax these sightings all over the world so people will report them, and let's date it back to the Roman Empire. Yeah, I think it's, and especially when, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show about the new analysis that are being done of the Patterson-Gimlin footage, it's getting to the point where the only way you cannot believe is by burying your head in the sand and refusing to believe.
Yep, because I mean, you can't. They're disproving it, like you just said, is getting to be harder than proving it, in my opinion, because things are just, as technology gets more and more, and that video can be broken down further and further, and that's the thing. This video and this film has been scrutinized for years with the latest technology of whatever time frame it was being scrutinized at, and it stood up. There's been plenty of people who've said, "Oh, it's fake" because of this. I read, "Oh, there's a nice hole right there at the nose for the person behind the mask to breathe through." What? I mean, there's plenty of people who say that, but nobody has been able to definitively say, okay, here's the data, and here's how we've proven this, and here's, where we've reproduced the suit using this technology that was available back then, and it's videoed. nothing has ever been able to be done. Every credible thing has lent itself to proving it's real versus disproving it. And like DA said, if it gets to a point where you're just like you just refuse to believe, not because you don't have the proof in front of you. It's just because I don't want to believe this. I don't care what you say.
And like Pam said, Pam Nance says on Buckeye Bigfoot, absence of proof is not proof of absence. And why it's right. People want definite proof it's real, but they can't give you definite proof it's not.
Yep.
And when you tell them, look, Native American sightings go back since before Europeans set foot on this continent. How do you explain that? Oh, it's just BS. Oh, so you're going to dismiss 2,000 years of native lore? Okay. Not to mention that these creatures were referred to as wood woes, or long before the term Bigfoot or Dogman was ever created, they were describing these creatures, be they using the term werewolf or wolfman or wood woes or gray man of the Cairngorms or wild men or
Wild man of Borneo.
Wild man of Borneo. They were seeing these creatures. They just didn't know what to call them.
And okay, if that reporter doesn't coin the phrase Bigfoot, does that mean we wouldn't have had the popularity and had all the sightings and all the,
there were sightings of this creature long before the term Bigfoot was coined. If you look up old newspaper clippings, reports of wild man or sometimes they called them hairy men, things like that. You can find lots of encounter stories. Werewolf Springs. That's another one. That's a Dogman encounter straight out if you read it, but they didn't call it that because they didn't know what it was.
They called it a wild man of Borneo.
Richie says, real question. Did y'all see the real pick Dogman from Small Town Monsters podcast? I did not. I used to watch a lot of their shows, but I find that with my writing schedule, I don't get to watch near as many podcasts as I would like. I miss out on a lot of the newer podcasts. So I did not see that one. Trish Arnold says, my mountain men. Michelle says forest spirits or forest devils.
Yep.
Bigfoot has often been referred to as a forest devil.
Well, think about the Cherokee Devil. That was that's a Bigfoot creature.
The Sulkaloo.
And DVB2 said, how many times have we said exactly what he just said right there? Every major civilization on every continent has a story about these creatures.
And even the Piri-Reis map, the Piri-Reis map. Sorry, I'm hillbilly. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. The Piri-Reis map, even that map, which is of Antarctica before ice, had Bigfoot and Dogman type creatures in the margins of it. Richie Evans says it was caught on game camera, I believe. If you know which one that was, send me a link on it. I would like to watch that, see if I can see what it looks like. JDW 2150 says West Virginia, my uncles used to call them boogers or wood burgers. I've heard them called that around here. I've heard them called wild men. I've called them the men of the hills. There was the Ozarks blue man because its fur was so black it looked almost blue. There are lots of different names for these creatures that date back long before the term Bigfoot.
My great grandmother used to tell me when I'd go out and play in the woods as a kid, don't you go out in them woods too far, the boogers will get you. Now,
yeah, I remember my grandparents telling me the same thing. Just a guy who yaps his DA whenever you get the time to take a look in the MachiNation Discord, specifically the images channel. I acquired a pretty damning contestant for a Gugway ancestor. I will definitely check that out, man. I'll check that out as soon as we get off the show. Richie says he'll find it for me right after the show tonight. Yeah, shoot it to me in a message on Facebook or email it to me, whatever. It doesn't matter how you just, if you get a chance to find it and get it to me, I would definitely like to check that out. Kevin Bode says, I've not had a sighting, but I've had an unexplained experience with what I think could have been Bigfoot or Dogman, although I know I've seen a UFO and the possibility of a Mothman. Mothman sightings are more widespread than people realize. They really are. There's been recent sightings up around Kansas City and around Chicago. Kay Bowers, yeah. The story I heard about wood boogers as a kid was, don't go out in the woods at night because you won't come back.
Yep.
Yeah, Sonia says, but no one explained just what a booger was as a kid. Yeah, it was. She said, I just thought I'd walk into a spider web. Yeah, they didn't say what a booger was, but they said they'd get you.
Yep. All the
Isabel
time.
Thunderbirds. Yeah, lots of lore on Thunderbirds as well. Well, Doyle, you popped in as we're just about to start signing off because Robbie's got to work in the morning. But I appreciate you popping in. Hope you'll go back and check out the whole thing from the beginning. But folks, we've had a good night tonight. I'd be happy to keep going if it wasn't for the fact Robbie's got to get up at 0:30 for work, and you probably get pretty bored just listening to me yap. But I'm going to start winding things down. I want to remind you all the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So check on your friends and family that are first responders that served in the military, whether active or reserve or National Guard, or even if they have served at one point, because sometimes these men and women have to deal with things that continue to haunt them for years to come. I know both my dad and my brothers have had nightmares for years. My dad still had them up until he passed away, and he was in his 70s when he passed away, and he fought in World War II. So that should tell you something. These things stick with folks. So losing 22 people a day is 22 too many. Reach out to your friends and family and your loved ones. Let them know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care, and let them know that not let the hard days win. And make sure you let them know that you think the world's a better place with them in it. So definitely let them know you care. And if you're a veteran or a first responder in any capacity and you don't have anybody else to reach out to one of us. I'd rather hear your story than read your obituary, and I mean that so from the bottom of my heart. So again, thank you all. Hats off to the men and women of uniform. Thank you guys so much for everything you've done for us, keeping us safe and keeping us free. And we are going to close things out with a toast. And pretty happy with this toast. It's something we've been doing for a while now. And I'm going to bring her up on screen and close the show out with it. It's from an old Irish drinking song called The Parting Glass. And the toast goes a little like this. It says, but since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be to you all. Joy, peace, and happiness, and Slàinte mhath.
Slàinte.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAExMachiNation. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.